All right, so Governor, first of all, thanks for agreeing to talk to Disinformation.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right, and I'm going to read the questions, I hope you don't mind.
Sure.
In your book, you complain and talk about the media being complicit in furthering the goals of government and power elites. Do you think that the rise of various new media channels, whether they're cable TV like True TV, the channel that your show is on,
Right.
the internet where our website and Above Top Secret and InfoWars and so forth are on, or whether it's documentary films, you know, like Endgame, Alex's film, or
Sure.
the New World Order film I just showed you, do you think that those can compensate for the obvious agenda and bias of a Fox News channel or an MSNBC?
No, not fully, because most people will not delve in that deep. We're now a society of soundbite news, and people are used to just getting their news and information from sound bites. You know, all these people that criticize me in my book, I'm going to ask them, well, what studies have you done other than soundbite news? You know, how do you know other than what they tell you on the news in 2 or 3 sentences? But that's the United States today. You know, is that way. So can we overtake them? No, but we can certainly compete with them for the people who truly want to know. For the people that don't want to know, well, how do you reach them anyway?
Right. Now, a few weeks ago, I actually interviewed June Sarpong, who's one of your team.
Oh, sure.
And we did an audio.
She's a very interesting lady.
She's fantastic. Well, she's from my country, of course, as you know.
Sure.
Although I've been here 22 years, so I'm sort of a culturally American at this point.
Okay.
And we discussed how conspiracy theory with Jesse Ventura is kind of wrapped in an entertainment bubble.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Know? I mean, you have to make it entertaining,
Absolutely.
right? And you have to make it a little bit tabloid.
Yeah, it's not a documentary, you know, and that's the key. We're not doing a documentary. We are doing entertainment. And on the entertainment side of it, we're bridging almost a new thing here, because we're allowing the people who experienced something to be able to act within this format without writers, because all they do to us is relate what they know. So there's no writers needed here, and yet the people who lived it become the actors acting with me.
Right.
So it's semi real, you know, the Vogue now, real TV and all that, what we got everything of. So it's semi that and yet semi entertainment. Plus, it also gives me the leeway of plausible denial. If, say by chance, we do say something on there that is untrue, well then I can counter and say, wait a minute, we're not a documentary, we're entertainment.
Got it. So, in terms of who you're reaching with the show, and also you've got a new book, American Conspiracies.
Yeah.
Who's it for? Who are you educating? Who are you reaching with your book and with the TV series?
Well, hopefully we're reaching people who have that interest. Hopefully we're reaching people that don't have the interest. Maybe one show can hook them in, or they read my book and they realize in the end, wait a minute, this isn't Jesse Ventura writing like Tom Clancy or Vince Flynn, where he's writing a fictional story about fictional characters and using his own head to come up with this massive conspiracy. Everything in that book is documented in the back. We take that book and assemble it. It's very much like throwing a jigsaw puzzle on the floor. Okay, you start with one little shred of evidence that you get, and you start building and connecting and all this. Now, can you in the end put the whole jigsaw together? No. But you can put enough pieces into this puzzle to where you can look at it and be conscious enough to understand the big picture.
Right. Well, that's something that I absolutely wanted to discuss with you. I've read the book, really enjoyed it. I knew a lot of what was in there already,
Sure.
and I found out a lot of new things too.
Good.
And, you know, whether it's JFK assassination, 9/11, the current financial crisis scandals with Goldman Sachs and all the rest, you know, you describe what's happened, and but we don't really know who did it, right? I mean, there's always an implication that there's some group of individuals behind it.
The elites, as Fletcher Prouty called them,
now,
the elites.
You also say in the book that you don't really subscribe to the Bilderberg Trilateral Commission type New World Order theories that perhaps Alex Jones might be talking about.
Sure.
Is there some group, or is it different each time? I mean, what do you really think about that?
That's really the 800-pound gorilla, isn't it? Because, again, going back to the jigsaw puzzle, that's the hole you can't fill in. You know, who is it? But just like in Fletcher Prouty's book, he talked about how Winston Churchill made reference to people above him. And there's a quote. Now, at the time of World War II, who could have possibly been above Stalin, Churchill, Roosevelt, and Chiang Kai-shek? I mean, there's people more powerful than them. And that's, to me, the key to this thing, is that, and then you look at it and okay, take the Bilderbergs, where they seem to bring in all our leaders, go to this. Well, our president goes there and is made to sign a piece of paper that he won't talk about it. Who has the power to tell the president of the United States he has to sign a piece of paper and can't discuss what they do in here? I mean, I felt a little shunned. I won governor. Why wasn't I invited to the Bilderbergs? Probably because I wouldn't sign that piece of paper and they knew it. But, you know, I would love to go there and sit down and see what exactly do these people talk about here.
Well,
but you can bet me getting invited there would be the equivalent of the redheaded stepchild showing up on the day they read the will.
Well, I mean, Governor, you've held a very important public office.
Sure.
Have you felt at any time that you're getting close to the people who really are controlling what goes on? No.
And I'm sure that they limited if there is what I would learn, because they knew I'd come and go. You know, they knew, okay, we put up with this guy as governor for 4 years, or 8 if he decided to seek re-election, but he'll eventually go. But as you've read in my book, one of the great things I wanted to expose, without naming, because I'd get arrested then, was the fact that the CIA is embedded in Minnesota state government, and I can only assume that Minnesota's not the exception. If they're embedded in Minnesota government, then they're in all 50 governments. Why? When their mission statement says they're not to be operational inside the United States, why are they being allowed to operate inside the United States then?
It's a great question. I was hoping you'd tell me the answer, but
I don't know it.
It remains a question.
It remains a question.
Right. Moving back to the general idea of conspiracy theories, conspiracies become sort of a dirty word, certainly in the mainstream media.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I think that you're doing with your book called American Conspiracies and your TV show called Conspiracy Theory with Jesse Ventura is you're sort of rehabilitating that word, right? You're making it okay to talk about conspiracies again.
Well, thank you. I hope that I am.
But how do we distinguish, you know, what always happens in the mainstream media is that they take the word conspiracy and they bring up a guy like David Icke, perhaps, who perhaps says some great things, but then he talks about the British royal family being reptilians, which certainly for me is a step too far. I mean, how do we
I heard about this reptilian thing too. We had it as one of ours. And I looked at it and go, what in the hell is this? You know, and I vetoed that. I says, reptilians who come out from under the ground. You know, this one I got to see. You know, this is one I better see one first before we're going to go into this. But I think that's done completely to discredit the legitimate conspiracies. Because if they can lump us all in as these nutcases, well, the general public loves to stereotype. And that's exactly what they do. You know, and that's probably what they'll do to me now, because they claim if you don't support what they told you about 9/11, you can never get elected, because they'll bury you on that. And I don't think that just because you question your government or you question 9/11, that should be a thing that would stop you from holding office. We need to remember Thomas Jefferson said dissension's the greatest form of patriotism. And I believe that, because you have to hold elected people's feet to the fire, because if you don't, you will get bad government. You'll get better government if you hold their feet to the fire. And government is supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people.
I think that's tremendous advice. The other thing I'd really like you to ask for the disinformation audience that we're having this conversation for is, okay, we've watched the TV show, we've read the book, we've spent a lot of time on sites like disinfo.com, Above Top Secret, InfoWars, and so forth, getting all this information. what can we actually do? We've educated ourselves to some extent. Obviously, we can't go all the way. We don't, there are some questions that we haven't answered.
Sure.
But what can we do practically with this information? We know there's some bad things going on. What do we do now?
I think what you do is keep publicizing. Try to reach as many people as you can. Reach the doubters. Reach the people that are on the bubble. Educate, because my book, people are telling me, I didn't know any of this stuff. This is amazing. I had a lady today on a radio show with Jim Kerr, his partner, and she said, I read your book and it scared me to death. I went, good. I'm glad that it did, because I said, we've got to shake people up to understand that, and like Jim Kerr said, if everything you have in that book is true, he said, then we're living in a world that we don't even know about. And I said, well, Jim, we might be. And I said, don't you think we should seek that out and find out? So I would tell you all, keep doing what you're doing, because eventually, if you do it enough times, then you're doing exactly what the mainstream media does to all the people. They, for lack of a better term, brainwash the people toward the sound bites. You all can brainwash the people to investigate, read, and don't listen to the sound bites, or take it beyond the sound bites.
Last question for you, Governor. Is there any conspiracy that you've come across that's been too big that you haven't been able to put in your book, or you haven't been able to put in the TV series for reasons that I can only speculate on?
Well, the one thing that I don't want to touch is Area 51. We've got enough, I think, conspiracies dealing with humans on Earth that I really don't want to get involved in whether aliens landed in Nevada back in 1948 or not. I mean, I live down in the Baja now, and I live where there's no electricity. So at night, you should see the stars when you don't have backlighting. They are, and I'll sit out there some nights and I'll look up into this vast universe and I'll say to myself, oh yeah, we're the only ones. I mean, how could anybody look up there and think that we are the only form of life in this vast thing that you look up at there? So to me, going after the fact of are there aliens or have aliens visited us or not is really, to me, an irrelevant question. If they have, well, we don't really know about it and they haven't done anything, so why be concerned? If they haven't, well, maybe they just out there don't have the technology to get here, just like we barely have the technology to go up into that space for not very far. When you look at the moon isn't really that big a part of what's out there. It's a small little micronism that's out there.
Governor, thanks very much.
Thank
Much
you.
appreciated.
And keep up the good work.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.